Good morning, friends. This is Laura with Potpourri of Life. I hope that you had a great week. I hope yesterday or Friday was fabulous. And here we are Saturday, October 1st. Fall has arrived, and so have the lower temperatures here in New Hampshire. I woke up today. We haven't turned our heat on yet. We're both kind of trying to hope to hold off for a little bit. But it was like 67 degrees, I believe it was. And I'm like, oh gosh, how long can I hold out? But I'm going to. I have flannel shirts, and I can put more than a t-shirt on. I could continue to put warmer things on, but I'm cooking in the kitchen, so I'm not going to put any more layers on. And for my feet, because I don't like wearing shoes in the house, I have 2 pairs of socks on. That's right. That's how this chick rolls. So what I want to share with you is we're all worried about food, some of us. Me, I'm just kind of like, I go with the flow, and if this is what I got, this is what I got. So what I have today is I want to make a soup with produce that I picked up the other day. I think it was last week that I went to the clearance area, and there was some other things that I had, and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to make a soup. And how I'm going to do that, I'm going to use carrots that I've got some onions, an apple, some potatoes. I have sweet potatoes. I might put squash in. I see that the sun is a little bright there. So I had these. This is all I got from my garden. But you know what? I grew it. So that's not the end of the world, is it? So I have that. And I haven't decided everything I'm going to put in there. But what I also am going to use is I have some beef broth, which has vegetables in it too. So I will be using this as the liquid base. So I just wanted to do a little chit chat with you as I made this so that you could see how it's made. So first, I did wash up my carrots. I have my sweet potatoes already done, and I had 2. The ones that I picked up, there are only 2 out of the 4 that were good, in my opinion. Now, you don't have to cut these really small because I'm going to make it more of a creamy texture type soup, and it's the way I prefer it. So all I'm going to do is these sweet potatoes that I've already, I don't know if you can see, but I'm just cutting them down into small pieces, throwing them in the pot, and to get those done. I like sweet potatoes. I don't know if you do, but it's one of those things that I do like. And it'll give it a nice creamy texture. Okay, nice and loud, aren't I? Okay, I'm going to put this over here so you can see a little bit better. And what I'm also going to do is I've washed my carrots. So I am going to peel these. And what I'm going to do with the peelings is I'm going to put them into a bucket because I've already washed this, and I like to try to get as much of the dirt off my vegetables that I can, so I wash them. And with the root vegetables, I just get as much off, and then even these little tips I throw in this bucket. Now, if there's a bad piece, I'll put it in my compost bucket, but this bucket here I'm using today to make more broth after. So there's ways to make things last, and one of the things that has been on my mind is there's so much going on, and we can be afraid, or we can just live with hope and with confidence that our needs will be provided. I think we need to stop worrying about what everybody says and working towards not having to suffer. Now, they say there's going to be food shortages. I actually believe there will be. And that's why it's ever more important for everybody to stop wasting food. So what I've got here is I'm taking my vegetables that I got. These were the carrots. I did not grow any carrots. I did not have luck with the carrots. I did not have luck with the squash. I just got those 2 little squash. And I was going to do other stuff with it, but oh well. I might have to go and see what I can get at the farm stand, because I still need to go to the farm stand for apples, which I hope to do later this week. And so as I go through and I take my carrots and I peel them, I also look for bad parts, because the bad parts will not go into my bin to make more broth. So I keep doing this. I'm not going to cut those wonky. Yes, you can tell they're organic because you get weird shapes. Things that are not organic are too perfect. And I mean, not always, but usually you kind of get that kind of stuff in the organic area or from the farm stand. Oh, come on. I'll cut those up into like a side dish later when I make something like a meatloaf or something. Sorry for the loud noise. Almost over, folks. Okay, so we got the carrots in there. That's all I'm going to put in there. And by the way, I have no recipe. This is how I make my soups. I go with what I have, and I don't worry about whether I have, you know, if I don't have something, I go without. I'm going to put in, let's see, I think I'm going to put in some potatoes. I'm going to peel these, make sure that they're okay. And I don't worry about when, I just peel easier when I use a knife for my potatoes. And so even if there's a little extra potato left, I don't worry about it because it's going into my broth bucket. Now, when you make broth, you just take all your veggie scraps and then you add in some waters. I would recommend filtered water, but if all you have is tap water, you do what you do with what you have. I prefer the filtered water or even bottled water if you can get that. And that is getting a lot of glare on you. Let me see if I can change that for a minute. And now it gets dark. Well, at least, okay, now we got this one. I'm going to turn the light on. See if I can switch this up a bit, so we're not getting such a glare. Okay, you get an ambient issue here. Can we work with this? Oh goodness, sometimes lighting is the worst part of my videos, and I try to not let it get me down because this is what I got, and I don't like working in bright lights. And my daughters who do streaming, they said, Mom, you need better lighting. And I have a hard time working with bright lights. So, all right, so I got a couple of potatoes in here. I got sweet potatoes. I got chopped carrots. Let's see. All right. What we're going to do is we're going to add in some onions. And so to put into your bucket, peels and all go into the bucket for making broth. And again, you just have to cut it in chunks to make it easier for boiling down. I'm putting in a garlic, a nice large garlic clove. And these I'm not going to cut into small pieces. I'm just going to chop it like I just did the onion into like 4 to 6 pieces. I don't know if you, oh, you guys can't see that. So I just cut it into a few pieces here. And I'm going to do one more onion. And why I'm sharing this is a lot of people don't know how to make something with what they have. If this is what you got and you want some food to be very nutritious and stuff for your family or for you, I make it, as you can see, I'm using a smaller saucepan because I don't have tons of food here, so I'm making do with what I got. All right, the other thing that I want to do is I want to put an apple in. I put apples in any of my root soups, and the reason I do that, and by the way, if you're ever wondering if it's organic, if it starts with a 4, it's not organic, but if your label starts with a number like a 9, has a 9, it's organic honey crisp, and it has a number 9. It's the 5-digit number it has a 5-digit number that starts with a 9, so you know that it's organic. Now I'm actually putting the seeds and everything into my broth bucket, so I am not going to put my skins into it, and even though skins are really good, I'm just going to throw those into my broth bucket. Now the reason I'm showing you a lot of this is because you guys can make, those of you who don't know how to make soups and all you're doing is buying cans of it, and the reason I'm showing it, there might not be cans of soup on the shelf. And like I shared the other day, the companies that are buying out small companies, they support GMO processing or growing of their food. So, and there's also a lot of preservatives. This soup that I'm making has no preservatives. It's just simply natural food that you can get at your grocer, at your farm stand, in your garden, or sometimes people are gifted, and you just kind of like make do with what you got. Now this is just a few potatoes and a few sweet potatoes so far, a few carrots, and like I said, I'm going to save some of the carrots. I've got things falling on the floor. That's okay. I always wash the floor on Saturday anyway. So, and I don't worry about how big the pieces are, and so that's why I do it like that. Let's see. Now, I'm not going to do any more onions. What I want to do, I have some radishes over here. I don't think I'm going to put radishes in it. Okay. The first thing I'm going to do is I am going to take, oh, this is too tight. I'm going to take my broth that I made. I'm going to take that and I'm going to put it in just so I can see how much space I have in here before I add more veggies. I don't think I'm going to add much more for veggies, and this will be good because it's a nice nutritious soup, and it'll be almost like a luxury to have something that's custom made and organic that I didn't have to pay big bucks for. So this is a pint-sized jar of of broth, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this as my base liquid, if I can get the lid off. There we go. And I pour it right in, and this is something I made using scraps from leftover. There's not a lot of water in here yet, so I'm going to top it off with filtered water. Oh, I'm running out of filtered water. Let's see. There we go. Now this one had beef, so it's kind of like a beef type flavor in it already. So folks, I don't have a recipe, but if you kind of follow what I'm doing, you just kind of go around and say, okay, what do I have? What can I use? What can I put in there? And that's what I do. I don't, if I don't have something, I don't worry about it. And that's why I stopped using recipes a long time ago. And hopefully that camera will come right back. Come on, camera. Come on, camera. Sometimes my camera goes in and out and I'm not sure why, so I hope you're bearing with me. So I've got 1 jar of broth, 2 jars of filtered water. Use whatever water that you have available to you, and if you can get filtered water, all the better. If you have to have bottled water, that's fine, but try to filter your water if you can. So I don't think I'm going to add the squash in there today, but I am going to add in, I dehydrated some celery this summer, so I'm going to put in a few of those celery. It still smells yummy. I'm going to add in some chia seed. Now these things, it's a choice, whatever you want to put in here, okay? So this is about a tablespoon of chia seed. And what that does, it actually provides more nutrition, but it also thickens up your soup. I dehydrate my kale because I can't. I buy it in bunches, but I can't eat it all because it's too much. And I can feed it to the chickens, of course. But I've always made a practice of dehydrating what I won't use. And so I end up with plenty to put in soups, smoothies, whatever I desire to use it in, and it just adds those nutrients into it. I have some rosemary here from the garden, so I'm just going to put in a little bit, maybe not that much. I'm going to chop it up though. Even though I'm going to blend this really well later, I'm going to chop it down a little bit. Okay, so what else do I want to put in here? And that's just it. You kind of like go around in your kitchen and say, what do I want to put in here for flavoring? I make a tea every morning that is oregano and thyme right from the garden. So, but what I can also do, if I want oregano and thyme in my soup, I can also use this because it's not just tea, it's seasonings. So I'm going to add maybe a tablespoon of that into this blend as well. And I'm going to start getting this warmed up. And what you want to do is you want to get this to the point of, when you make mashed potatoes, you make it to where it is soft, where you can put the fork through. That's where you want to get these root vegetables to. In order to make this creamy type soup, that's where you want to go. So let me clean this up for a little bit. But there's some things that I wanted to chit chat with you about because of how the world is going. It's sometimes I wonder, are we living in fear? Are we living in, I think we're living in chaos. Honestly, is that the end of the world? No, as long as you handle it well. And yes, even when the pandemic arrived 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, it was madness. For like the first 2 years, it was madness, and it really took me down. And so when the first part of this year, I decided I'm not going to do that anymore. I am just going to live life. You know, like if somebody doesn't want to call me back, or if people don't want to connect, you know what? I can't live waiting around. And I used to. I'm one of those people that's a giver and I want to help. But I also like resolution in terms of like with our insurance company. You know what? I'm tired. They don't want to help, so it's over. I will use them as much as I can, but we're going to be using less and less services because I just don't like fighting with them for things. And they do have the ability to change your plan without you knowing. So it's really, they did that once a couple of years ago with some procedures I was having done that were helping with my pain. And we just said, I'm just not going to do it. But on the bright side, I'm doing better. I'm focusing more on making sure I get my turmeric with pepperine. I'm making sure that I'm doing a lot of other things, doing the stretching and all those other things that I've been encouraged to do. So I hope that if you have pain issues, that you focus on the holistic measures in which are available to you that you can afford. So let's see how this is doing here. Another thing that I want to put in here, and I'm not a big salt person, but I am going to put in some, there's no iodine in here. So it's just regular sea salt. So it's just, that's all I put in there, is because I don't want the iodine in here, because I get iodine in a lot of some of the foods that I get, and I just don't want to be having too much iodine. And I don't really like people adding it in. The other thing I'm going to add in here is some pepper. And as we talk, you're going to see me say, oh, this will be good, this will be good. So, but I have onions, I have garlic, and I don't know if I'm going to put in anything else. But anyways, this is going to take a while to get to its soft stage. So you can do this. You can take the foods that you have. Go to the farmer's market. See what they have. Sometimes one of the farmer's markets I go to, they have an area of foods that are, they're fine. They might have some bad spots, so you would just have to cut off, and it's at a reduced price. It's good sized box for like $5. It's not always there when I go, and I only go once a month, and so they don't always have it. It's not the end of the world. But even at the grocery store, check those clearance aisles out. But if you don't want to do that, but you have vegetables on hand that are starting to go bad because you bought more than you thought you would use, put them in a soup. Because with soups, you can can them up if you get too many. And if you have the freezer space, you can put them in the freezer. I've made my husband some pea soup with no ham, and I just make that, and it's really, really good. And so I do a lot of that kind of stuff. So I'm going to be showing you how to make these things from what you have. And the reason I'm doing this is because if there is no soup products that you can afford, do you know how many? Let's see. I used 3 pints of, 2 pints of water and 1 pint of broth. Okay, so there's 3 pints of that, and then all these vegetables. There's going to be at least 4 to 5 pints of soup. With that, my husband and I might consume 1 pint, which is like what, about 2 cups or something. So we might consume that much, and then the rest I will actually can up, because one of the things we don't like to do is eat the same thing over and over again. Although I might be seeing my grandkids this weekend, so I might save some for them. Or if I don't see them this weekend, we might see them next weekend. We're working some things out, so it depends on everybody's plan. So my daughter and I are working on one deal. I have to get in touch with my husband, see what he wants to do, and then it's just the way it is. Everybody has to connect. So I think if we don't get together this weekend, we'll get together next weekend. But she asked me to make him a little costume. So the end of the month is almost here, and she asked me a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, I was thinking about it the other day. Oh no, October's coming in. And I'm not a Halloween person, by the way, but I love making costumes. And it's just, I was talking to her today on the phone, and as she was like showing me some other costumes that fit him, he was like, what are you doing with my costumes? Because he knows that she can't wear these things. So hopefully he won't mind me borrowing them, because what I do is I take something that fits them, I might measure them up, and then just kind of make whatever to fit them from what I have and make a pattern from that. So I'll kind of show you what I'm doing when I get that. And I think she has some items that are used that were no longer being used, and I don't want to say what it is yet because I'm kind of excited. And I love making costumes, and kids love to dress up, which is really kind of fun. So how are we doing here, soup? So when you make a soup with what you have, what would you put in it? I could put this squash in, but I think I'm going to save that and go and get a pumpkin. And then I can make my pumpkin squash soup that I make. And the nice thing about the squashes, the winter squashes and stuff, the summer squash, is that these last for a little bit on your shelf. So they're not going to go bad as quickly as other, like carrots for me, they don't last very long. So I either eat them or they just start getting soft. And so I like to use them up pretty close to when I buy them, like within a week. I do have a zucchini here that I got. Has a little knot out of it, but I'll take this out and I'll make a small zucchini bread later. And I have some bananas that we did not finish. I bought them like a week ago and they started turning brown. Threw them in the fridge and now the skin is black, but inside the banana is fine. And I know a lot of people, they see the black skin and they kind of like, whoa, can't do that. Well, if you've ever been tight on your budget, yes, you can. I could throw it out in the compost. I believe chickens can eat bananas as well. But you know, I have to feed David and I first. And he likes banana bread. The grandkids like banana bread. And they like zucchini bread too. So we'll just have to keep that in mind when I see them. And no, that's not the reason I'm making it. I'm making it because the food is here and I don't want it to go bad. So what kind of things do you get that you don't want to go bad or you're throwing away a lot? If you have soup or you have leftover, okay, Thanksgiving's going to be around the corner. You're going to have turkey and you make turkey sandwiches, you make turkey casseroles. I make my husband a casserole with the stuffing, the potatoes, and the turkey, and then I bake that. I put butter on it for him, and then he takes his cranberry sauce and he puts that on it. So that works for him, and I used to love it when before I realized what was causing the stomach issues. So I kind of miss it, but I do have some gluten-free stuffing mix I picked up just in case. So, and because I like stuffing. But there's other things that you can do with that turkey. You take that carcass and you put it in a great big stock pot and you boil that right down, and then you have turkey broth, whether you put anything else in it or not. But what I do is I save those onions, I save anything that I make for a Thanksgiving dinner, and I put it in there with the carcass, and I boil that baby down. And then you make broth. And that you can use when you're making rice, when you make mashed potatoes. There's so many things. And when you're making soup. So I'm going to finish cooking this so I don't have to babble on nothing, and I will be back. Have a great afternoon. So friends, my root vegetables are now soft enough where a fork can go through, which is great. One thing that I thought about is, because I mentioned about the pea soup, is that I am now going to add in maybe half a cup of dried peas. Because that would actually add more nutrition, and it's all blended. And if you are one who does not like peas, I'm going to let that just boil for a few more minutes. If you don't like peas, I used to hate peas as a kid, and I think it's because they just were so bland and stuff. But the more I cook and the older I got, I just realized if you cook them a certain way, they taste pretty amazing. But I have dried peas on hand. And for those of you that don't have dried legumes on hand, you might want to make sure you have a few bags of different ones that you might enjoy, because you can make soups out of them. And I think I've shared you can make flour out of like garbanzo beans. You can make it out of almost any beans. You can make flour. So you can even make flour out of zucchini if you want, but I'm going to make zucchini bread instead. So I'm just letting the peas warm up because it doesn't take long for them to get to where I need them to be. So I'm going to just talk that you can add different things like this into a soup. What do you have? And if you don't have much, you can still make a small soup with just carrots and potatoes with a few seasonings, and you'd be amazed at how good it tastes. If you don't have broth on hand, that's not the end of the world. Just use some good water, and I'm going to show you the final touch that I do to my soups as we get done. because I am just smelling this. I'm kind of like my stomach is growling. I haven't eaten breakfast, and I normally don't. I don't normally eat breakfast until maybe 11, between 11 and 2, so I don't really eat a breakfast. I eat a brunch. Okay, let's see what we got here. They need to kind of keep going. So we're going to let that cook for a little bit. So in this one, I'm using, as I've already shared, potatoes, sweet and regular potatoes. You can use red potatoes. You can use whatever you want, whatever you have. If all you have is one potato, put that in your soup unless you want mashed potatoes. Mashed potatoes are fine. And then look around. Do you have garlic? Put that in. Put a whole clove in, because the garlic is good for your immune system and it'll keep you healthy through the cold months. If you have carrots, even if you have canned carrots, canned peas, you can make soups out of whatever you have on your shelves, even canned potatoes. You know, the sky is the limit when you open your mind to say, what can I make? So let's see where this is at. Now, there's no meat that's going to go in this, so I'm going to turn this off. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to, and the reason I'm using my Revereware, this is cookware that I've had since we were married, instead of my other stuff, because this can get scraped up a little bit if needed. So I'm going to go in here and start doing that. These things always share. So I've pretty much finished chopping this up. I'm going to just make sure that there's no chunks left in here. Oh, there's one chunk. Get this unplugged so that I can get that washed off. Now, the soup is pretty much done, except for one thing. Now, I realized that some people do not like soy milk. I can't have cow milk. I've tried different products, and even the kefir that I've shared that I made, I was kind of excited about making, and I still am, because I'm going to keep practicing. But milk really bothers me, and they say kefir doesn't always bother everybody, but I think it did. So I've got to do a little bit more experimenting before I totally give up. Because of how it's made, it's supposed to take out the lactose, but I don't believe it's the lactose. It's the casein in it that really affects me, and it can cause a lot of things. I'll share some information about why people are allergic to milk, and it's not just lactose, folks. So what I'm going to do, so I can't have regular milk. So what I do, now this soup is pretty warm. So what I'm going to do is I am going to serve myself a little bit of, oh, I got drips of it already in there. Okay. It almost looks almost pea soup-like. And it could be because I've added the peas. It could be a number of reasons because of the different roots and stuff. But it doesn't matter. So what I do, now my husband, I will encourage him to add his regular milk in here to give it that creamy texture. So now I don't drink a lot of soy milk, but I do drink enough to get my calcium. So what I do is I just add a little bit of milk to it. How much? whenever I feel like it. So as you can see, almost like the people who do fancy coffees, you can make a little design if you want. I don't. I just stir it right in there so it becomes a cream soup and it cools it down. It's still a little warm. And it's really good. So I'm going to be enjoying that for lunch today. I'm not going to have anything else with it because I don't. It does have, it's not smooth like tomato soup that you might have, but you can taste the vegetables. And I really like doing this in the fall because soup packs a ton of nutrients, more so if you make it yourself, because there's no additives in here. Sure, I put some salt in it, but it's not iodines, it's not anything. And the only thing that I put in here that was purchased was this organic soy milk. And it does, oops, I didn't put the cap on. I just got a little bit more milk in my soup. So it has organic soy milk. It's with filtered water and soybeans. So that's how they make it. It has organic cane sugar. It has calcium carbonate, sea salt, and natural flavors and other stuff. There's not much I can do about that. I'm not making soy milk on my own right now. Could I? I suppose I could if I bought soybeans, but I don't have soybeans on my shelves. So adding a little bit of something like that. You can also add almond milk. Almond milk is a great milk for thickening things up and giving it that creamy texture. You can add your regular milk, or if you have half and half, you can use whatever you have to thicken it up. And you may use other things. If you have leftover cream from making like soups and stuff over the fall season, you can add those in just to give it a special touch at the end. So to sum it up, and I know I've been back and forth with this video because of lighting, because of different things, but I'm gonna have to do a lot of editing. So what is in here is, I took some carrots that I had. Didn't have a lot, and I didn't use them all because I'm gonna actually use the other carrots in something else. So I washed them. Make sure you wash your root vegetables, even if they are organic, because there is still the potential of stuff that could be, and there's some bacteria and all. So please wash your root vegetables and all other vegetables really well before you start cooking with them. So I washed the carrots, I sliced them, I peeled them, and then I just sliced them into big chunks. I added, what did I add? Potatoes, sweet potatoes. We added onion. We added garlic, and I added a variety of other seasonings and stuff. And then at the end, I added some dried peas. And folks, having dried legumes on hand, well, you'll find that it's a bonus. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, I hope that you write them below. If you want to see more of the foods that I prepare more in the fall season, and I do it because, first of all, it warms up my kitchen. Because when I started out, it was like 68 degrees. I don't know what it is, but I'm comfortable now. But I'm near the stove. And I have a nice hearty soup that I can enjoy. And I suppose I could calculate all the different nutrients that are in here, but I don't need to. And if you have too much kale, I can tell you, I think I've shared how I dry my kale. You can dry your leafy greens so that you can later put them into soups like that. And that's what I like about this. I don't have to have a smoothie. I can have a hot soup instead of a smoothie. And I find this more enjoyable, more so in these cooler temps. And so could I put anything else in here? I'm sure I could. Would I put fruit in here? I already like adding apples. I love adding apples to my soups, more so in the fall. Could I add some berries? I suppose I could. I never have. But could I add other? I think I can, but at this point I'm just using apples. So look around your kitchen. What do you have? Go clean your refrigerator out. What has not gone bad, or has part of it gone bad? Clean out your refrigerator today. Get it nice and clean so you have a clean start. And then get those vegetables that you haven't used. Chop them up. Get rid of compost what's no good. Put the everything else into a bucket or a bowl so that you can make broth with later. Don't waste the scraps of your vegetables, because if you don't have to pay the market price for broth, you're saving yourself a lot of money, and all you're doing is cooking it on the stove. And yes, you can freeze your broth if that's what you want to do. And I mean, I have, pints and quarts downstairs because I can make big batches of something and I can make small batches. And this was a small batch, and I'm really happy with it because it really does. It's a little bit cooler now. It is so good. I love it. So I hope it's helpful, and I hope that you have a fabulous day, nutritiously filled, and that you bring a smile to somebody's day. Enjoy, and may God bless you.